think we can start. I'll start this reading session now. Hello and welcome to AFRSA's first public program in 2023. This event is the third reading session of the ongoing project From Where I Stand. It will be led by our working group member, Rosalia Namsai Engchuan. We have many new audiences joining today, so before we start, we'd like to give you a short introduction of AFRSA and the project From Where I Stand. Asian Feminist Studio for Art and Research, SOT AFRSA, is founded in 2020 and starts to conduct a collective research project and public event in 2021. We focus on building connections between contemporary art, scholarly discourse, and activism through a feminist and diasporic perspective. In the last 2 years, AFRSA has been growing a network connecting practitioners across disciplines and regions.
The project From Where I Stand is a self-reflective and learning process of discovering reading material from and by Asian and diasporic actors with feminist perspective and goals. From Where I Stand began in September 2022 and will continue until June 2023 this year. AFRSA invite artists, collective, and researchers to co-host the program. With the cooperation partners, AFRSA forms a working group. The participants of the working group propose texts from their focus and background that concerning feminism. From Where I Stand is on one hand focusing on feminist artistic practice and research. On the other hand, it acts as a participatory research. Through networking with the participant, we discuss a wide range of concerns that may contribute to construct or speculate on Asian feminism. Not the least, this program should also contribute to establishing other ways of re-entering the notion of Asia, which has been mostly led by West male nationalist-oriented perspective. Asia, or being Asian, as a method, could now be possible for feminist knowledge production.
I will give a short introduction of Rosalia as well. Rosalia Namsai Engchuan is an artist and researcher whose practice draws on decolonial, multi-species, and queer theory. She has written widely for art and academic publications on contemporary art, epistemic violence, and lectured internationally at Cornell University, Harvard University, HKB Fine Arts, NYU School of the Arts, and Sandberg Institute. Her PhD at Max Planck Institute for Social Anthropology and Friedrich Alexander University centers on colonial epistemologies in collaboration with knowledge holders outside of modern scientific and state health infrastructures. Her ongoing intuitive research is invested in the imperatives, promises, and desires of colonial healing practice. Rosalia curates screenings and dialogical encounters with the Berlin-based collective Untitled and the research platform for Forest Colonialism. She was a 2021 Goethe Institute Fellow at Hamburg Bahnhof Museum, Berlin.
Yeah, details.
Please.
Yeah, details of our research program from Where I Stand or event from it, you can find on our website or through our social media channels. After the reading session today, you can also give us some questions about our platforms. And now we give the microphone to Rosalia. Please.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and to Moody and Hanwen for organizing the reading group and for creating this space today for us to share. And thank you for everyone joining, of course. I'm just gonna start with a little, because today there will be a screening and I will introduce some of my writings and also some of the texts that I shared within the reading group. But don't worry if you haven't read the text or anything, it's not mandatory. I will just like refer to them and talk a little bit of how they relate to my practice. But yeah, you do not have to read the text beforehand. And since the video work is on the Thai Park in Berlin, I'm going to start with a little introduction before I show the film, just for those who do not live in Berlin or are not familiar with the Thai Park. And then we will watch the video. It's like a hybrid ethnographic, but also speculative work. And I made it together with the women in the Thai Park in Berlin. And it was initially made together with Untitled, with the collective Untitled in Berlin. We had an exhibition at the Villa Oppenheim. So I made the video for this exhibition. And I like looking back now, I think it's interesting because I had a white audience like a majority white audience in mind when I made it. And I think, yeah, it's something to keep in the back of the head maybe. And after we watch the video, I will add some additional background information on the historical specificity of the situation in Thailand. And then I will talk about the reading material and two of the concepts, which is the first is like the notion of opacity versus transparency. And then also the whole idea of speculation and artistic practice. And yeah, try to talk a bit how I try to translate it into my practice. And yeah, that's it basically. I'm gonna share the presentation with you now. Need to full screen mode. Okay. Now it says it's pause again, resume share. Sorry, this is weird.
Take your time. Maybe you can do it again.
Yeah. Screen sharing. Why does it pause the screen sharing? That's so weird. Okay. Share. Okay, can you see it now?
I can see.
Okay, perfect. Good. Okay. First of all, I wanted to say a few words, which is maybe like a bit off topic, but also not, because it's kind of my worldview or how I make sense of the world, is that I constantly remind myself, or I'm reminded, that colonization is not over and that our whole world is like very entrenched by colonial structures. And that is always like also when we talk about feminism, it's also always this matrix of capitalism, colonialism, and the patriarchy that really make up the fabric of our world. And especially in Thailand, which is a country that is very proud of never having formally been colonized, these histories still reverberate. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And then another phenomenon that I think with a lot is Enlightenment's legacy of introducing these multiple hierarchies of like what is better, and like the natural course of history going from pre-modern to modern and towards development, and which makes it sometimes easy to locate problems in individuals, but not in these like very complex problem clusters. And it is exactly this meta timeline from backward to modern that I want to also critique with the work. And yeah, why is it important? I'm sorry, that is too late. Because I felt that in how people have dealt with the Thai Park and spoke about the Thai Park, or also speak about migrants, is often as individuals who make wrong choices or misinformed choices without seeing the bigger picture in a way. And relating to the first reading that I put into the folder is just like one thing that I found, like one text specifically that I found very powerful in arguing against this like hierarchy of rationalization and reminding us that there is a lot of power also in our own intuition. And that's something it's hard for me to trust my intuition at times, but it's something that I try to do a lot, especially in my artistic practice. And yeah, this is just like, we're not going to go deep into the reading, but if you haven't read it yet, it's a very beautiful text. And then to the Thai Park in Berlin. The Thai Park in Berlin, I have some pictures here. There's an aerial view. It's basically happens mostly on weekends in summer. And it's Thai migrant women who, most of them have been in Germany for more than 20 years already, selling food. And it started out as a picnic place where they just met because they felt lonely. They have German husbands. Their apartments are really small, so they don't really have the social space to meet at home. So they had like this communal picnic. And then, as like people say, they were asked if they want to sell the food. People wanted to sell the food, and it just turned into a market and became bigger and bigger. And it became a really big tourist attraction. It was also mentioned in the New York Times, which was in a way a good thing because it allowed them to create an income from the selling of food, which was totally unregulated. So they just took like the cash basically and had some additional income. Most of it, they sent it home. But also it made the space visible, and it grew bigger and bigger. And then at some point it was too big, and there was a need for it to be regulated and to be ordered. And when I look at these articles, it's not only these articles, it's really representative of how people speak about the Thai Park. They always speak about a food market, they speak about immigrants, then they also mention Isan, which is the northeastern region of Thailand, where most of these women who sell food there come from. And I just felt that there was they were actually missing the point. I wanted to have a closer look. And also talking to the women, I realized that it's not a food market only for them. It's really a space where they make homes, because they have lonely homes, they have violent homes. And now it's like, with the recent regulations, the Berlin city administration wants to regulate the market, and it wants to turn it into a food market. So all the regulations are for a food market. But my point was kind of like, it's actually not a food market. But and all this is for the benefit of the visitors and of the tourists, but it's destroying the most vulnerable members of these communities that have actually built it. And this was my kind of like doing the research, doing the interview with the Thai woman. I was like, yeah, they're looking, but they actually don't see what is happening. They don't see the histories. They don't see why these people are there and how they are there. And yeah, basically this just as a brief introduction of the space and my practice. And now I'm gonna share, we're gonna watch the film now, because I think it speaks for itself. And then afterwards we can talk more about it. Once.
Never ever trust a glittery surface. Think mermaidic thoughts.
So viele Menschen kommen hierher, schauen, aber sehen nicht. Sie sehen nicht, dass das hier nicht schön ist, dass diese Lächeln nicht für sie sind.
There is no right way to tell this story, because this story is not right.
"ชีวิตในประเทศไทยนั้นต่างออกไป การมีความสุขในประเทศไทยนั้นต่างกัน มันไม่เหมือนกัน มันแตกต่างกันสำหรับทุกคนฉันโชคดีเพราะฉันมีสามีที่ดีเขาไปทำงานส่วนฉันอยู่บ้านในวันหยุดสุดสัปดาห์ฉันไปเจอเพื่อนที่ไทยปาร์คเพราะที่บ้านฉันรู้สึกเหงาชีวิตที่นี่เป็นเรื่องยากฉันไม่มีการศึกษาที่ดีในฐานะคนต่างชาติฉันจะสามารถทำงานอะไรที่นี่ได้บ้างแม่บ้านทำความสะอาด1 ชั่วโมง5 ยูโรทุกวัน 4-5 ชั่วโมง20 ยูโรฉันไม่ได้โง่ฉันไม่กลัวฉันสามารถทำงานได้ฉันสามารถเก็บออมไม่ใช่เพื่อตัวเองแต่เพื่อครอบครัวของฉันผู้หญิงไทยรักแม่ของเขารักพ่อของเขาทุกคนช่วยเหลือครอบครัวของพวกเขาไม่รู้ว่ามันยากพวกเขาคิดว่าฉันเป็นภรรยาฝรั่งพวกเขาคิดว่าฉันมีสามีรวยชีวิตที่ดีแต่มันไม่จริงมันเป็นเรื่องยากฉันทำงานทุกวันมันไม่ได้หยุดฉันจำได้ดีผู้หญิงมากมายที่นี่สามีของพวกเขาตกงานหรือมีเงินน้อยมากอพาร์ตเมนต์มีราคาแพงเสื้อผ้ามีราคาแพงสามีดื่มฉันพูดความจริงประเทศเยอรมนีเป็นประเทศที่ดีที่นี่คุณสามารถพูดได้อย่างอิสระมีประกันสุขภาพและอากาศก็ดีกว่าประเทศไทยอากาศร้อนเกินไปฉันไปที่นั่นเพื่อวันหยุดพักร้อนเท่านั้นครั้งล่าสุดที่ฉันไปที่นั่นก็เป็นเวลา5 ปีมาแล้วตั๋วก็แพงฉันเป็นแม่เลี้ยงเดี่ยวฉันได้รับการสนับสนุนที่ประเทศเยอรมนีนี้ในประเทศไทยไม่มีเงินหลังจากการหย่าร้างฉันไม่สามารถพูดภาษาเยอรมันฉันทำงานในครัวฉันรู้จักแต่คนไทยเท่านั้นรัฐบาลให้เงินกับฉันในการเรียนภาษาเยอรมันฉันรู้สึกเหมือนพวกเขาให้ชีวิตใหม่แก่ฉันอาหารอพาร์ตเมนต์การศึกษาแต่ทุกอย่างมีข้อจำกัดมันแทบจะไม่พอสำหรับอาหารถ้าคุณใช้ชีวิตเหมือนคนเยอรมันคุณสามารถอาศัยอยู่ที่นี่กินขนมปังแต่ฉันมีความสุขของฉันคือลูกสาวของฉันผู้คนกินที่นี่เพื่อเราจะได้อยู่ต่อวันนี้พรุ่งนี้และวันมะรืนนี้30 ปีที่แล้วฉันรู้สึกว่ามีขนตาตกอยู่บนแก้มของฉันเป่ามันออกไปฉันได้ขอพรคุณต้องสละส่วนหนึ่งของคุณไปเพื่อทำให้ความปรารถนาของคุณเป็นจริงฉันจากไปเพื่อหลักประกันของชีวิตที่ดีกว่าฉันเดินทางออกจากทุกสิ่งที่ฉันรัก 1,000 หยดน้ำตาของการกล่าวคำลา
But honey, they were fake eyelashes, dipped in the cruel optimism of our modern world.
Sie kam für ein besseres Leben. Was ist ein gutes Leben? Und wer kann es haben?
คุณทวดของฉันเป็นผู้หญิงที่สวยผมสั้นฟันดำผู้คนยังถูกบดขยี้ด้วยการน้อมรับคนตะวันตกอย่างมีอารยธรรมความสุขที่ไม่ได้บ่งชี้จากรอยยิ้มเมื่อคุณทวดของคุณมาที่สยามเขาได้นำความเชื่อแบบตะวันตกมากับเขาด้วยเมื่อคุณทวดของคุณพบกับคุณทวดของฉันณงานปาร์ตี้ในสวนที่บ้านพักในกรุงเทพเขามองไปที่เธอแต่เขาไม่เห็นเธอตาของเขามืดบอดด้วยความงานที่เขาไม่อาจเข้าใจเธอแตกต่างจากทุกสิ่งที่เขาเคยเห็นเขากำลังสับสนเธอไม่ได้มองเข้าไปในตาเขาเธอรู้สึกถึงมันความรุนแรงที่เขาจะมอบให้กับเธอและคนรุ่นต่อๆไปหากนี่เป็นเพียงเรื่องราวของการพบเจอกันโดยบังเอิญระหว่างคุณทวดของฉันกับคุณทวดของคุณโลกเราคงจะต่างออกไปจากทุกวันนี้
But it was not. When they met, the West made the Orient, fascinated and repulsed, a desire to grasp, people yet to be made modern. And then a young Thai boy went to France. He wanted to prove them that he too was one of them, that his people were like them, modern, civilized.
พวกเขาบอกคุณยายของฉันให้ไว้ผมยาวและทำฟันของเธอให้ขาวพวกเขาบอกให้เธอใส่กระโปรงเหมือนอย่างที่ผู้หญิงตะวันตกทำ
This was about staying in power. A massive project of self-colonization unfurled, creeping from the garden party villas into the deepest corners of a nation in the making. Our beautiful motherland, the Naga goddess, she was replaced by the masculine nation, a template of control over lands, bodies, and minds, so that the Western man can understand what he looks at. Only their own reflection would be a geo-body to talk to. And so it happened. They bowed to these grasping desires, a synchronized dance of invention and destruction, so that today we can proudly say that Thailand has never been colonized.
Thailand, a land of tranquil waterways, of colorful flower boats, and magnificent royal barges. Thailand, a land rich in traditions. Fly there with Thai this year and discover why we're proud to be Thai.
This is the story of the genesis of the Thai woman, this fantasy of hypersexualized exotic beauty and submissive smiles. She does not exist. She never did. She was made. All this has nothing and everything to do with her, you, me.
Es ist kein Zufall, dass hier an Sommerwochenenden so viele Frauen aus fernen Ländern kommodifizierte Authentizität verkaufen.
They are here because this project of civilization created worlds not livable so that other worlds become better.
fragst du dich manchmal, wie das Leben nach der Apokalypse ist. Das Glück ist eine komplizierte Angelegenheit hier.
เมื่อฉันออกจากบ้านฉันไปทุกที่ที่มีคนไทยฉันไปพบเจอเพื่อนของฉันพวกเราไปเต้นซุมบ้าแล้วหลังจากนั้นก็ไปซาวน่าพวกเราชอบร้องคาราโอเกะเมื่อคืนพวกเราไปฉลองวันเกิดของเพื่อนลูกๆของฉันอาศัยอยู่ในประเทศไทยลูกชาย2 คนและลูกสาว2 คนพวกเขาแต่งงานหมดแล้วฉันมีหลาน7 คนพวกเขาส่งดอกมะลิมาให้ฉันในวันแม่ฉันมีความสุขมากเมื่อพวกเราไปที่วัดพวกเรานึกถึงครอบครัวของพวกเราเสมอทั้งคนที่ยังอยู่และผู้ที่ล่วงลับไปแล้วพวกเราอธิษฐานให้พวกเขาเพื่อที่พวกเขาจะได้รับสิ่งที่ดีในอีกโลกหนึ่งฉันรู้สึกมีความสุขที่ได้ให้บางสิ่งกับคนอื่นพวกเราทำพิธีนี้เพราะเรายังเป็นคนไทยฉันอาศัยอยู่ในประเทศใหม่ฉันเข้าใจแล้วว่าผู้คนอาศัยอยู่ที่นี่อย่างไรมันคือชีวิตของฉันในตอนนี้แต่หัวใจของฉันเป็นคนไทยเสมอฉันเรียนการเต้นนี้จากวิดีโอ YouTube ฉันเป็นนักเต้นฉันอาจดูแก่และดูเหมือนฉันไม่มีพลังแต่เมื่อฉันอยู่บนเวทีมันให้พลังแก่ฉันอย่างมากเมื่อนั้นฉันก็มีความสุขเพราะมีหลายสิ่งที่ไม่มีใครสามารถเอาไปจากฉันได้จากภายในจากสิ่งที่ฉันรักฉันพยายามอย่างมากเพื่อประสบความสำเร็จจากพื้นที่ของฉันร่วมกับผู้หญิงทั้งหมดคนอื่นๆที่จับกลุ่มกันที่นี่แก่นหลักความสุขของฉันเป็นเรื่องเรียบง่ายเมื่อใดก็ตามที่คนที่ฉันรักมองเห็นฉันอย่างแท้จริงภายใต้ความเสื่อมทรามและเปลือกอันบิดเบี้ยวซึ่งคนอื่นสร้างให้ฉัน
The benchmark for happiness is distorted because the compass of the world is masculine power games. This young Thai girl is doing this for all of us, burying forever and always what others have made of her, opening up a portal for new possibilities of becoming. There will be a turn in history, something in the waiting and wanting for centuries, a shift from masculine power games to feminine care. Some have already left, the others are on their way.
เมื่อเราไปถึงเราก็จะเต้นเหมือนที่เราเต้นในร้านคาราโอเกะ
ลูกเอ๋ยนอนเถิดนอนเสียเจ้ายังอ่อนยังเยาว์ขวัญเจ้าดวงจิตแม่เอ๋
Okay, that was the work. I think, like, I mean, if you have, please feel free to interrupt if you have immediate questions. But I thought since the work is like very opaque, it doesn't explain everything. I wanted to use this opportunity to give some more context on the specific history. I need to share my screen again. It's like basic. Wait. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Can you see my screen now? Yeah,
Yes,
I'm just
I
trying
can
to make it smaller so I can actually see it. Okay, sorry. No, don't show it. Do you also see the chat, or you're fine? Okay, I think it's only on my screen now. Yeah, so basically some of the histories that I felt are not visible when you go to the Thai park, or when you meet these women, that actually give a completely different understanding of like thinking about why they might be there, how they might end up there. And there are some additional questions that I also felt the main discourse and like this New York Times article and also the Berlin press and just how people in general were speaking about the Thai park didn't reflect, and some questions they didn't ask. And all of this also with having in mind that we are so entrenched, and I think I'm too, like I don't exclude myself, with some notions of what we consider normal and what is like true or natural. So the question of why do they have to leave Isan, like this region in the northeast of Thailand, is always like obviously linked to this kind of cruel promise of modernization and development and life elsewhere being better that is still operating, like life in the West being better. And for many women who migrate on this promise, it turns out that actually life in Germany is not only better. I mean, it's not a black and white situation, but it's like there's a lot of issues also with modernity, and especially with this hierarchy that was introduced. And this hierarchy of like bureaucratic order and everything being legible over the chaos, the perceived chaos of this Thai food market, can also be interpreted alongside the lens of epistemicide and this like the killing of knowledge systems. Because when we spoke to the women, it became very clear that it's actually not that they are not organized. Like maybe from the outside, from a Western perspective, it looks as if everything is really chaotic and if it's just little stalls selling different things. But in fact, it's that they are very organized and that they are like organized behind. So for example, they share an ice delivery or something, and like they have a very elaborate system of who sells on what day, depending on the weather, the specific family situation, and all these things. So the park is actually very, very organized. It's just not in the way that the German bureaucratic apparatus would be able to comprehend. And so it's just like labeled as chaotic and as something that needs to improve in order to still have a right to exist, basically. Oops, sorry. And then another history, sorry, I just need to stop sharing and share once again because I have a weird chat window popping up and it's disturbing me. Okay, so another history, and this relates also to the stereotype of the Thai woman, and especially the surface, like the stereotype of what a Thai woman looks like, this very hyper mediatized imagination of the Thai woman, and the history of that links directly back to this idea that Thailand has never been colonized, which is true if you think about colonization as like physical intervention within the country. But here is an image of General Pibun Songkran, and I also make a reference to it in the video. And he is the person behind the cultural mandates that were introduced in Thailand to basically, it was around the 1940s, to basically regulate how Thai people have to dress. And the prehistory to this is that in the past, Thai women, and you see it on the some of the archival images, in the past, Thai women and Thai men, they didn't really look like gender different according to a Western like standard. So Westerners who came to Thailand for trade, they didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense of like, is this a man or is this a woman? They got really confused. And then again, this hierarchy was introduced. You are not developed, you are barbaric, you are not covering your body. So in order not to be colonized in a situation where most of the countries in Southeast Asia around Thailand were colonized already by Western powers, they kind of did this strategy of proxy or self-colonization, that the developments of modernization that were often introduced by outside colonizers just happened from within the elites of the country. And the cultural mandates are one example of. Here you can see the traditional clothing and the Western clothing, which became mandatory to go to certain government agencies to have access to government services. And this was not a natural process, but it was really, it started among the elites who were in touch with Westerners and wanted to kind of catch up and show that they are also modern and civilized. And then it was implemented as a top-down government regulation. And then also tourism. This, I'm not going to read all of this because it's a lot, but this is part of the reading of one of the essays that I also shared. And it talks about tourism. And tourism in Thailand also didn't just pop out of nowhere. It has a very specific history and trajectory, and it cannot be thought without also thinking of the Cold War. During that time, a lot of GIs were stationed in Thailand, and many of them came to Thailand specifically only for their rest and recreation, where they had a few days of like escape from the battlefield to totally like consume everything that like came across. And during that time, with US investment, a whole infrastructure for tourism was starting to develop. So out of the really like fishermen villages, they built like hotels, they built bars, restaurants, nightclubs, and all these massage parlors that became very famous. The beginning was really during that time. And then more and more international travel was possible. In the beginning, there were like some hippies who came via land, who like went to Southeast Asia. But then it was more and more people who were able to buy a plane ticket and go to Thailand. And as you can see also from some of the advertisements here you have like this imagination of the Thai woman that became basically an operational image in international tourism to make tourists go to Thailand. But at the same time, it also like tourism reverse started. And there was this desire to have like the exotic Thainess, not only in Thailand, but also in the home countries. And this whole wave of transnational marriage migration that also operated very much on this like stereotypical imagination of the Thai woman as sexually submissive, obedient, and very weak. In my reading also like the perfect counterpart to make like a Western man feel strong started at the same time. So this is kind of a little bit on how these pathways of migration kind of started to emerge. And knowing all of this, or looking into all of these histories and not just ignoring them, it's of course like when we look back at the discourse, and I still have this example of the New York Times article, yeah, it's definitely not only a food market, it's very much a space for homemaking. And then also this whole idea of like calling food weird and like calling people or practices exotic has this inherent violence of othering. And then, yeah, you have the tourists, but you also have like immigrants or migrants, and you have Isan, and then you have this whole history of which I don't have time to go into it too deep, but I'm gonna, I wrote an essay about the whole history of the northeast of Thailand and how, like, it's also not a coincidence that there's a lot of poverty in this region and a lot of the migrants actually come from this region. This also has reasons within the country of internal colonization and of creating an internal other within the country. So that's also like a nuance that people just don't know of mostly when they speak about Thai Park. And then, yeah, maybe just to sum up quickly, I think what I wanted to point out with the archival research, the historical research, which all went into the video, and also obviously the conversations with the women themselves and their stories on like how they experience their lives. I wanted to say that this like the stereotype of the Thai woman is like she was made like completely and not only by so many different histories and forces over like hundreds of years. This idea kind of was created of the submissive and sexually obedient Thai woman. And she has obviously become a very powerful surface image that influences these lives without representing anything of what these people really are. And she is a product of exactly these stories of the Cold War, of nationalism also in Thailand. Yeah, so this was what I was kind of wanting to point out or to hint to within the video by including these scenes. And then, yeah, I think that was it on the historical. I wonder if it makes sense, if you have any questions on the historical specificity, if we address them now. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea, actually. Before I speak more about the readings and the concepts. Yeah, maybe you should, like, if anyone has any questions on that, because I think it was already a lot. Feel free to I think you can just unmute yourself, right? If there are any questions, or put them in the chat, or. And if there are no questions, it's also fine. Okay. The essay on Isan is going to be published. I will announce it. It's like going to be published in February, I think. Okay. I mean, if there are no concrete questions, I can also continue. Okay. So one of the concepts that really informed my practice since a really long time, but also my own being, because my father is Thai and my mom is German, and I grew up in Germany, and I kind of like grew up having to explain myself a lot, which was always giving me this feeling of not belonging or of very conditional belonging, which confused me like growing up and as a teenager. And so reading about this, I like being introduced to this notion of opacity. And I mean, it's not only Glissant who argues for it, but I read this text and it's like this, yeah, this just like being opaque, being vague, but having power in this was something that I found really, that helped me personally a lot, and was also something I had in the back of my head when making the work. And in like, it also links back to modernization and enlightenment, where this like striving for transparency and for making things tangible and legible is an instrument of power. And it's like in science, or also in documentary, in conventional documentary, there is this demand for transparency. And in this like situation of going to the Thai Park and talking to the women, it made me uncomfortable. And I also felt like if they have been living in Germany for 20 or 30 years and no one cares to speak to them, why should I now like package all their stories and give them on a silver tray so that people can just like, oh, now I know more about these Thai women, but like still don't speak to them. So I didn't feel like I want to like perform this gesture. And also in a situation where like the space they're operating is like a gray space, it's illegal in a way to sell food without a permit and all those things. It's also like making them too transparent is actually like not helping them. It's dangerous for them. So this violent history of like having to render things transparent, other them, fetishize them, it's also like the beginning of anthropology, and I've been doing my PhD in anthropology, is very, very colonial. Translate, capture into the system, and it's all about like even understanding, like wanting to understand someone, which is often a very good, can be a good, with a good intention, but it can still be such a violent gesture if it's like this, I need to understand you, otherwise I cannot accept your being. And I think that relates, my thinking here relates not only to the Thai Park, but to the way Germany and Germans treats people from different places. Sometimes if it's always this, I need to understand this, and I need this understanding is like against a benchmark and against a scale, which is often the scale of Western modernity, the scale that is already superior, and anything that falls outside of this is judged upon, is looked down upon, and even worse, it is like reduced or destroyed, which in a way happened with the formalization of the Thai Park. And I wrote something on opacity, and this is another essay that I also shared. And it kind of was me overthinking what I do. So I wrote a bit on the making of the work and on my methodology. And maybe I'm just gonna read together with you, like I'm gonna read it, but you can also see it on the screen. Just need to see that the Zoom is not blocking my view here. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, just some of the background on the notion of opacity and how it relates to my work. After spending much of my teenage life trying to make myself legible to those who failed to make sense of me, Glissant's thinking allowed me to see beauty and power in opacity. He reminds us that not everyone interesting needs to make their story comprehensible to the framework of understanding defined by the other. Reading up on diverse attempts to investigate the Thai Park, I realized that researchers who entered the space before me have failed in establishing a common ground for insightful conversations with the women, making them open up about their lives. Why would they? In a precarious situation where they navigate their status as sellers without permit, even with the best of intentions, an outsider's intrusion into the space can easily become a contestation of their presence. In the discourse around Thai Park, transparency is a means of oppression and control, and a refusal to talk to outside researchers becomes a powerful claim of the right to stay opaque. Yet, the non-presence of the Thai women's experiences and articulations in mainstream discourse and in policies derived from there led to unfortunate consequences in the administration of the space. At the time when I was starting the research, it was already decided that the space would be formalized. For the women, issues with local authorities were constantly up in the air, making it dangerous to render transparent life stories that expose illegal activities. In a situation where the power structures I wish to critique in theory were also fundamental obstacles to the practice of doing research, I found this avenue in artistic research. I wanted to offer the women the opportunity to open up in their encounters with me, while at the same time giving them the right to remain opaque in the further dissemination of the research. The video is deeply entered in the reality of these women and our conversations and interactions, but it is decidedly not a representation or documentation. Maybe also a few words on like how I entered the space. I think before I did the research in the Thai Park, because this maybe I forgot to mention, but it's really important. I myself am also an outsider to the Thai Park, obviously, even though we are kind of crumpled together by this stereotype or by the sameness of Thai people are all the same. I'm an outsider to the Thai Park, so obviously I also had spent a lot of time thinking about do I even have the right to enter the space and to tell these stories? And what's the point of me doing this, coming as an outsider? How to become part of the community? And I had a really, really wonderful research assistant also who helped me a lot. And she came with me and she already knew some people there. And I spent a lot of time there. And reading up on what other people, there's a lot of ethnographic research on the Thai Park in Germany because it's this exotic and exciting place. And a lot of all of this is basically about the failure to get access to information. And one person even told me when they went there with their university class, they did a semester project on Thai Park or something in anthropology, I think. They were throwing things at them, were telling them to leave. And this is what I refer to here. I think it's actually such a powerful statement of these women to not just tell everyone, just give everyone their stories. And so when I went there, I spent a lot of time just being there without even asking any questions. And then from an understanding that they initially created this space as a leisure space, as a happy space. I obviously didn't want to ask them about sad questions in a way, what is the situation with your husband and how is your permit and all of these questions. So the only question I used to enter conversations was what is happiness for you? And these are all these or what are the moments when you're happy? And this is also what you see, what you see in the subtitles and what then in the end became the script, which I wrote after based on these conversations, but it's not a one-on-one translation of these conversations, basically. And then another thing that when we're thinking about positionality and who I am or who the camera becomes entering the space is that I still showed images of these women. One of the reasons being that they're so ubiquitously available on YouTube and everywhere. So I didn't feel like I'm exposing something secret. So you can still see images of these women, but you don't know. Actually, most of the women that I interviewed more intimately, you cannot see them in the video. And I also there's no reference or no names mentioned, which I told them in the beginning. I told them I don't even need to know your name because they were very scared of giving their names because of the authorities and everything. But this the camera angle is one thing that I wanted to put the camera on eyesight with the women because of the regulations in the Thai Park before it became formalized. they could only sit on the floor because, like, I think, yeah, chairs and stuff were not allowed and tables by park regulations, so they had to sit on the floor. So every encounter, that was an observation that I made, was kind of a looking down on them. Because if you just walk through there, you automatically look down on them. And yes, of course, it's like because of the regulation, because of circumstance, but in a way, I also felt that it's a bigger comment on how people might feel about them. That is totally my interpretation and my feeling about it. But I wanted to put the camera in a different way. And then, of course, it becomes a bit of a weird perspective sometimes, because this is not how you would normally enter the space. But for me, it was really important to have the camera positioned like this, not only as a technical thing, but also I was thinking of it more like as an ethical and a political positioning of the camera. Yeah, that like as a little background. And then here I have a bunch of quotes. The second topic after opacity is speculation or the speculative. And I have a bunch of quotes here that talk mostly about why we would want to speculate, like kind of not only reproduce what is and shed light on these violent histories and everything that make the present, but also open up this possibility of something different, of something new. And yeah, I'm sharing here with you some readings that I found really inspirational in reading, or sometimes just like reading these texts and feeling like, oh, I'm not alone, like there's someone else with a similar desire, maybe coming from a totally different place in history, but with this desire for something else, and also with this acknowledgement that as long as there's only critique and we only react, we are so limited by the thing we are reacting to, and like the question of what else is there. And in my practice, the speculative becomes this thing that kind of like goes in many directions, but it is always linked to something, like to something very concrete of like my experience with, or the stories that the women shared with me. So it's not, the speculative is not fabulation. It's not invention or making something up completely. It's always anchored in something that is embryonically already there. And there's many ways of how I tried to, because in the end, it was my desire to create a speculative work, and it's like not on me to judge if it really is one. So I'm just sharing like what I was kind of intending to do, and I totally don't know if it worked out or not, because I feel like it leaves, the work leaves a lot of room for interpretation, and it's not my task to define its meaning. But I wanted to introduce this other storyteller that embodies kind of a past. So she looks a little bit like Thai women used to look before the gender colonization interventions. And she tells, like she mentions, or she hints to these untold histories that people don't know of, or would rather forget. And it's kind of like she tells all the things. She becomes this vessel for all the research that I did. And so aesthetically, she refers to the past, but also conceptually is like, I understood her as a kind of placeholder for maybe other futures. And then another way I introduced the more speculative or fictional was that I was reading a lot of this very dry academic and hardly accessible historical accounts, and I rewrote it to basically a story of your great-grandfather, to make it more, also thinking about audience, because I felt like maybe in this way it becomes more accessible. So these different layers of storytelling. And on this image, it's not related to the topic now, but here you can see on the black and white image how men and women just didn't look very, very different in the past. And yeah, that's an image I found in the archives with like the same kind of haircut and traditional pant style. And these others are the early colonizers, like Western people who came to Siam a long, long time ago. And another dimension of this speculative was that I started to imagine, like, what is this like intergenerational care of these women? And here I tried to just visually create this community where there's care from the ancestors for these women who create their community here in Berlin and create their lives. And the images you see here, that's also not completely related to the speculative now, because it's something that I also filmed, and it was like more like an ethnographic filming, in the sense that I didn't give any directions. I just said I'm here and I'm filming, but I didn't ask them to do anything. And this is also in the Thai park, and this is a celebration for Mother's Day, where they are having that like such a beautiful celebration. It was mostly only Thai people there, and some of the husbands also. And it showed me that like the Thai park is like such an important community space, and not only a food market. Once again, it was during the week. And it was so beautiful to see the Thai park when it was truly their space, and when there were not just sellers of food. And then this is in the Thai temple in Panko, and another instance of where I saw the potentiality, or like I experienced the potentiality of so much joy, of abundance that is already now present in the community. And it's maybe not dominant and it's not there all the time, but it's like this embryonic moment from where the imagination or the speculation can go. And they are collecting money for the renovation or for the new building of the Thai temple. They're collecting donations. That's why, like, the money trees and all of that. But also to add again, to not romanticize this too much, this was happening on a weekend, the celebration. So it also means only those people of the Thai community who did not have to sell food and make a living in the Thai park could actually go there. So also, like, within the community, the space is not always accessible to everyone. And then some other examples of like where I already saw like the happiness is like these Thai nuns who are making food also in the Thai temple. And the food in the Thai temple is so much better than in the Thai park also, because they're growing their own herbs and they're using traditional recipes. And but also like there's a bigger history for women going to the temple. Most of these women have either their husbands have died, and it's often linked also to financial concerns, and the position of women in Thai Buddhism is difficult. So yeah, again, it's like this happiness idea is very liminal and very complicated, but there are these moments, and there are like these moments when people smile because they're really happy. At least, yeah. Here is an image of the garden, where they're also growing these yellow flowers that are very important in Buddhist ceremonies of like almsgiving. And maybe just to end me talking so much, so you can also ask questions, but revisiting, because the work is already 3 years old, and I just realized again that also relating to the topic of this reading group, from where I stand as an outsider, that maybe is only linked through the bombardment with the stereotypes with these people, like what can I even do? And I'm very aware that I will not change the life trajectory of these women. But what I was trying to do with the video, and what I also mentioned in the beginning, that it was geared towards a wide audience, like the museum is very close to the Thai park. So I kind of knew that people who normally go to the Thai park and think it's all so nice and everyone is smiling and it's all so wonderful, or it's all like super chaotic and it needs to go. These are like the two different sides of it. I can't like really change them, but I can maybe change a little bit the perception that they have of the space. So I wanted to, because change happens from the inside and I can't ever force it from outside, but I wanted to see this work like as a trigger, or maybe like to make this offer to make people feel a bit uncomfortable about their own happiness with this space within Berlin. And but it's like totally not in my power if I can even change people's mindsets or anything with it. I think so far from me. I feel like I talked a lot, so please feel free to ask questions or comments. Yeah, I'm really curious about anything.
Actually, yeah, Rosalia clarify many of my previous questions, but I can still give you some questions that I had already when I first time see your video, like especially in your essay, the fictionalizing realities, the one you just shared. You did mention, I mean, you already mentioned, like explain briefly about how Thai women, the sellers in Thai Park had to transform their stores in certain ways. But can you maybe for the audience who is not so familiar with the Thai Park in Berlin, maybe you can elaborate more about how Berlin tried to make it more Thai Park, make it more eligible to fit into German bureaucratic systems. How it was fluctuated.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Thank you. So basically, because the Thai Park became, I mean, the people, like those of you who have been there have seen it, it got really crazy. It got so big. And if something becomes too big, it just needs to be controlled. And there were complaints by the neighbors about noise and about the garbage, even though the Thai Park had a really elaborate system, self-management, to get rid of the garbage. And they would even walk around to those picnicking and hand out little plastic bags so they could get like collect the garbage so it wouldn't be left there. But that was kind of the discourse. It's too loud. There's too much garbage left. There was suddenly a concern about the environment, about the grass, because the grass suffers from like the people there. But I really contest these arguments. And then, but because of that, like based on these arguments, there was this need to control and regulate the park. And then, of course, the women are not paying taxes. Some of them are receiving social benefits, so they're not allowed to have an extra income. But then it's not that much money. And there are like flea markets in Berlin also where people sell stuff. So I don't know how they are regulated, but there doesn't seem to be so much fuss around it. And this whole idea of this is way too chaotic. It's kind of like this monster. But at the same time, Berlin benefited a lot from the presence of the Thai Park. It was like tourism marketing. It was an amazing, so the city benefited from the presence of the Thai Park, and they didn't want to let this go. So they were like, okay, we're just gonna regulate it and create a formal space. And this was also the time when we got involved, Untitled, the collective got involved, because one of our members was an student of architecture, and he did his thesis on also ethnographic research in the Thai park on the space. And he got to know that there's like a competition on a redesign of the Thai park by some university in Berlin, that students were making semester projects to redesign the Thai park. And he went to one of the meetings and said, there's no Thai person in this meeting. So it's like there were a bunch of these meetings where they tried to invite Thai people, but obviously if you invite them to like a government building, they will be so scared they will not come. Like the invitation was there, and we were also in many times, like in many occasions, asked to help to invite them, but we also told them like, you can't invite, like it's not the right space to have these conversations. And it's just to tick it off the list. It's not actually taking into consideration the realities and needs of these peoples. Because then there's always like, but we are in Germany here, this is how it works, this is how it needs to be. I got personally so frustrated with the whole process. At some point, we were even asked if we want to manage the Thai park, which also again shows to them it's like we're just all the same people. Like how would I, or like some of my other collective members, even be in a situation to speak for them or represent them? So it ended up in us joining some of the meetings, pointing to the problems. That was after the film was made already, pointing to the problems that regulation brings, because obviously if they were reducing the number of sellers, so who's gonna decide who can sell or not? And it's overwhelming administrative and bureaucratic work that, of course, very old people cannot even comprehend. They're just not able to do it. So it will be almost impossible for the most vulnerable members of the community to sell in this new Thai park. Also because they need to pay for like a stand fee, and on rainy days, they can't really make that money. So they're losing money. So it's also, again, not possible. With a lot of problems that these new regulations kind of bring to them. In the end, but it's easy for commercial sellers who want to enter a space, a very profitable space, because there's a lot of foot traffic, there's a lot of people already coming, the marketing is already done, they can handle the paperwork and everything. And then there's question of authenticity, because like apparently you can only sell authentic food, and who is to judge what is authentic food and not, like all of these questions. And in the end, it had like the plan to formalize was put into place, and I got personally so frustrated with it that I kind of needed to step away a little bit, because I felt like we were invited to these spaces, but like there was no understanding or no reaction. There was understanding, but there was just like very intentional ignorance of these issues, with always blaming like the bureaucracy or whatever. But there was also like good sides to it, because at least the Thai people could like form a verein. And I think at some point we also helped them a little bit with the satsung and everything. But I mean, maybe someone else knows more about this. The last thing I know is that people are just very frustrated with the way things are now. And within the community, that's what I heard, that it's like just so difficult to deal with all these rules and regulations. But what my critique always was in this whole thing is that this whole project became suddenly about like formalizing a food market, when this was not a food market in the first place. And to me, this was really an attack on the dignity of these women who carved out these spaces as like their homes, far away from their real homes or like Thailand. and just looking at them as service providers, like not being so ignorant of the need to have a home, of the need to have community, to assemble community. And it's like everything that people seem to care about was, I want this food, and like, here are the rules, and like, I don't care if like the history and the future of these people is just totally like not relevant within this kind of bureaucratic decision. And that was really, really frustrating to me. But even more so, obviously, to those people who had to deal with it. Yeah, and now I think it's new. I went there once. It looks different now. I think now they have tables, actually, again, the new and formalized Thai market. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your answer, Rosalia. I want to say that if you, to the audiences, if you have any questions, please put in the chat box and we'll read it loud, or you can unmute yourself to ask. So actually there's other question from our side. We want to engage with the question of the making of the space, because Thai Park itself is already a space which allow this kind of illegal activities from the perspective of the government regulation. And I want to ask you to talk about more about this making of the space that embraces opacity, that is both realized in your research approach and the construction of your video, which dedicated the space, again, the space for rewriting a future which is ultimately other than a rigid projection.
Thanks for that question. I think this space is, it leads back to this question of what is even my business or my positionality in all of this. And my research comes from a very personal interest in needing to understand Thai femininity, because I needed to understand myself and to be able to explain my presence in Germany, which was confusing to people like all the time when I was growing up. And so I was coming from there of needing to understand Thai history, but at some point I was like realizing, and by them having asked us if we just want to like manage the Thai Park, it also again shows this kind of like generalization of subjectivities. You are just all the same. And so no matter where we actually come from and what we don't have a lot in common, there's this outside assumption that we're just like all the same. And this is, I feel like, the only thing that we have in common, but it's like assumed. So in order to make the work, I needed to create a space with the women, like an actual space, not just like an assumed space. I needed to create this space before I could even make the video, and before I could even like just hear their stories, because like, as I told before, they're not super open with like telling everyone, which I think is amazing. And then opacity, or this like talking to them and telling them, it's like with some, I don't even know their names. I told them like, you don't need to tell me your name. It's fine. Like, and I know nicknames also. I definitely don't know any real names. And there's like guaranteeing, and also having the research assistant again, who is like helping to tell them again and again, like, you don't, because my Thai is actually not good enough. I understand Thai, but I don't speak Thai fluently. That's why I had her with me. So the women can speak Thai and they don't need to speak German or English. So that's why she was like, then I was kind of like giving the questions. And also like my research assistant, she had a very deep understanding. She was also the DOP for the project, and she has a very deep understanding of the questions. So we went there together, and I feel like this was definitely the door opener in creating this space, this like creating this common space that we just didn't have before, was like this promise of opacity, and also like not easy questions, but like not like demanding questions of like asking about happiness, which then leads to all kinds of other stories as well. And I feel like this is the space that I was able to create during the research. And what definitely helped was also when I always told them my story, like my father is Thai, like I have some kind of relationship also to Thailand in a way that definitely helped also to create the space. Yeah, I think that was interesting that during the process, I needed to create a space of communality. And I mean, it's a space we shared for the time of the research. We went different ways. And this leads, I'm just seeing a question in the chat, if I showed the work to the women and what's their reaction. Yes, we showed the work. We made a very big effort in inviting the people from the Thai Park to the opening of the exhibition, and we collaborated. This is all thanks to Sarnd from Untitled. We collaborated with the temple because he said if like the temple invites them, they will come. So a lot of them actually came to the opening. The performer, who is a second generation Thai German growing up in Germany, she was like, I had a lot of conversations with her about the whole topic and like everything about growing up in Germany and everything. And she saw it too. She brought her mom. I never had like a formalized like screening for the people I worked with, which like would maybe be ideal, but also to where only they would be there and could also comment on it. But some of the people I spoke to, I really like. The Thai Park is like very chaotic, and when we went there, we always had conversations sitting down, and then someone was coming and going and was saying something. So I actually don't have like a direct trace to where every quote is coming from whom, but I always try to make the work accessible to the community as well. And a lot of them came to the opening, and some of the feedback. There was not much like very comprehensive feedback. There was like sometimes like a thank you or something, but I don't know. I think, honestly, I'm not super sure if like they all saw the whole thing. I think probably not. It's a very specific format. And also this is something I want to think about more in future projects. I really made this work because I wanted to have a conversation with the white people in the audience. So that was the audience I had in mind. I kind of like still had a bit of this anger inside of me that I felt I need to tell them something. And in doing that, I think the work didn't become like a total work that is addressed towards the community. It's something that like still lingers with me. And then, oh yeah, that we worked as a collective on the project. I think, I don't know if some of you are here. I think we worked as a collective on different, like on this exhibition on the Thai Park with different people doing different research and making different works. But the end products kind of were more or less individual, but what was collective was that we organized this exhibition together. We applied for funding together. We did the research together, a lot of the research. So we helped each other, and I was helped a lot by the other members of the collective. Also, I would not have been able to kind of like enter this community with over, like, I think the research was over one summer, because they already had connections there, and that helped me a lot. And we shared readings, we shared our research. So our research project and exchange of information was very collective, but then the works were individual projects. Yeah.
Maybe follow up by Hanwen's question about opacity. I can also make a little comment on it, and I have another question for you. I found the concept of right to stay opacity in your artistic practice particularly interesting. As an artist, I can relate to the challenge of conveying the stories of others without imposing my own subjectivity or fantasizing about them. However, I also recognize the importance of preserving otherness for the other in representation, like you mentioned. And I would love to hear more about your upcoming or current or recent project or any kind of areas of your concern.
Thanks for this question. I think my answer to this will be very scattered since I'm still in the process of research at the moment, and I'm tasking myself with being even more intuitive. So it's not so easy for me at this point to explain a lot. But what I'm interested in is still the different life trajectories of Thai women, migration also all over the world. So I did research in LA with Buddhist nuns. And this, I think the interest in it started a little bit through these encounters in Berlin. And then I went to a temple and in LA, and just experiencing the position of women in the temple was really interesting, which is like very, very inferior to men. And then of course also again like looking at the history of why is that so. And another research stream that also links again to opacity is linked to that is the history of epistemicide, or like the elimination of traditional knowledges, especially in Thailand. And I'm working with in like practitioners of indigenous postpartum rituals, and who today still struggle a lot to like keep up their practice, because it's also labeled as like weird, messy, opaque, and it's only sometimes allowed in hospitals, not always. And then looking at the history of how it was actually Western men coming to Thailand and introducing the whole idea of Western medicine, of the conception of the body as like something that can be compartmentalized and analyzed and rendered transparent. But in like some other belief systems, the body is like energy lines that flow through ancestral lines and have like so many more connections. And how this again is like projected onto women's bodies and their experiences of giving birth. That was like a big project I was working on. And I felt like even though the people I'm speaking to are so different, like the like it's Thailand, it's Germany, it's LA, but I always felt that this like kind of like non-embracing of opacity, but in vis-a-vis the enormous potential and power of anything that is opaque or cannot be explained according to Western scientific knowledge systems, is something that I find very, very fascinating. And how it basically, these like hundreds of years old processes still influence lives today, how they shape migration and all of these things. So I'm for the postpartum rituals and birthing, I'm working on a film, and then on Isan and the history of also environmental projects. So the domination of nature and all of these things, and how this actually leads to poverty and to migration. This is the essay that I mentioned before. I think, yeah, these are some of the things I'm working on at the moment. And yeah, I feel like on a meta level, these topics just like pop up again and again.
Thank you, Rosalia, for the for the generous sharing. And I want to ask if anybody who have more questions, maybe we'll have a few minutes for the last question.
Oh, maybe while you're thinking, I made a note about this preserving otherness, and I just have like an anecdote because I presented the research I did with the midwives on a postpartum ritual at a very strictly high profile academic conference. And it was such an eye-opening and interesting experience to me, because I had basically filmed one of these postpartum rituals, and I had a voiceover, that was not a scripted one. It was a recording of an interview with a midwife who practices like indigenous methods. And then I showed the video, and the postpartum ritual it's called laying by the fire, and it's a period of rest after giving birth for women. And it was labeled as barbaric, like roasting women, like thing that should not be done by Western medicinal practitioners who came to Thailand. And then like doctors, like in a concrete social situation, a Western doctor who was called to a birth said he won't do anything if the midwife doesn't leave the space. So it's not that I'm saying Western medicinal procedures are completely nonsense. They are very helpful in some cases. Like my only issue is with this hierarchy, with this like the midwife leaves the room or I'm not doing anything, this either or, and this kind of dominance. That is the problem. So I showed the video that shows what a beautiful central space it is, and the voiceover of the woman. And then someone from the audience made a comment on, like an American scholar said, like that the way I portray women, so sensual and so like non-rational, is really harmful and not helping feminism in a way, because like she had a very wide American feminist idea of what feminism is, and kind of told me the way I portray this woman, but I just like put whatever she said. And I also consider it, even if the people I mean, it's not that I have a story and then I want to tell it. It's like they tell their story. And if they embrace and practice this ritual and it is very sensual, then this is just like maybe the otherness that is not according to white Western feminist ideas of what this should be. Because her argument was basically that I'm like reproducing the stereotype of the irrational woman or something. But to me, it's nothing bad. It's nothing that needs to be like avoided or anything. But I thought it was interesting that like my attempt of giving the space for her to tell her story and be just whoever she is, very sensual, very not rational, was so heavily contested in a way. I found that really interesting, like this preservation of otherness that is not accepted in a way, in like a larger white feminist agenda. Yeah.
If there's no further questions, maybe we can slowly closing it down. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Rosalia, to share your insightful thoughts and your journey of producing your work. We're really happy to hear your stories. And yeah, thanks everyone to stay with us today. And anybody who has a question about our platform and about our current project, please contact us either via social media, or you can also send us an email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.